Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I could not be more excited to be here. I am Charlie from Exposure Ninja, and I am joined today by Jaime from HubSpot. Hey, Jaime, how's it going?
Very good, thanks. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here to talk about the hottest topic of the year, AI visibility, right?
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about AI visibility and the most important part of that, which is not how visible we are, but how we actually understand how it's impacting our pipeline. So this webinar is for C-suite, it's for marketing leaders, it's for anyone who is grappling with the puzzle of trying to measure AI search and the impact of it. If you are already on HubSpot as well, you're going to find this incredibly valuable because Jaime is here so that we can deep dive into the HubSpot AEO tool suite and how it connects to your whole HubSpot CRM. So you are in for an absolute treat. Before we get fully into it, a couple of introductions for your hosts. So I am Charlie, CEO at Exposure Ninja. We are very proud to be the UK's best SEO and integrated search agency awarded for 2026. And my role is pretty much helping brands get cited by AI tools and measure the commercial outcomes of that. Jaime, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Jaime. I'm typically called Jamie. If you don't remember that, that's fine. I've been at HubSpot for 7 months. I'm a Partner Development Manager. It's a very fancy role that basically means I help my partners grow and have ideas of how to wrap services around HubSpot and go to market together. But for today specifically, I'm just really keen to show you like how we translate visibility into actual outcomes and how HubSpot is doing that. So can't wait to geek out with all of you. It's going to be great.
Amazing. So everyone, you will have coming on your screen now active poll that's asking how would you describe your AI search strategy right now. This is a friendly webinar. You don't need to lie here. It's absolutely fine if you have nothing defined, you haven't started yet, but also keen to hear anyone who's already experimenting or anyone who has got their strategy in place. Whilst everyone jumps into the poll, which is, wow, getting loads of votes. Thank you so much, everyone. A little bit of housekeeping for the webinar. So this webinar is going to run for around 45 minutes or just a little bit more. The chat is on your right-hand side. Please throw in questions any time. Jaime and I are going to have Q&A right at the end. So there'll be a little bit of time to answer your questions. If you need to jump out at any time, don't panic. The webinar will definitely be recorded. There'll be a follow-up email coming straight to your inbox with a recording and with a copy of the slides as well, because we have some extra juicy case studies that are going to be attached to the email flow as well. Fantastic mixed poll results we're getting. So we've got people with a defined strategy around 20%. So in the minority, lots experimenting. And the biggest section, 40% of us today, just starting to explore AI search. So amazing. And then a small 8% who haven't started yet. Hopefully this is the inspiration you need to get started. And hopefully Jaime and I can answer some of the questions that you might have about that. So let's get into it a little bit. Why are we even thinking about AI search? What we know already is that 80% of people say at least half of their purchase decisions are made within AI tools. And I always recommend we think about the way we search ourselves. Back in the day, we might have even been just searching on Ask Jeeves, for those who remember that, decades ago. Then we might have been on Google. Now it's quite likely we're using a bunch of different tools when we search, and we all have different favorites. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, as well as Google. And we also know, this is 2026 data, that ChatGPT traffic converts around 30% higher than non-branded organic traffic. There was some big misconceptions about conversion rates of AI traffic back in 2025. So I definitely recommend diving into some of the 2026 data. So here is perhaps something that is going to sound a little bit familiar. And if one or multiple of these describe you and how you're feeling, you are definitely going to be in the right place. The first is ChatGPT and AI overviews, recommending competitors instead of you. This is not what we want for our businesses, and one of the things we're looking to solve. Your Google traffic may not be what it once was. Lots of brands have seen huge changes in their Google traffic since AI became much bigger, much more used. And you might just be thinking about how you get ahead, how you future-proof the SEO strategy, the AEO strategy, the AI search strategy that you have. Now that you know AI search is pretty much the new world for marketing, and it's something we need to be thinking about. Or if you are perhaps in that awkward position of feeling like you're still doing SEO like you were 5 years ago, this webinar is going to be fairly enlightening if you're there. The most common one I hear, I think, from many of the clients we work with is they may have felt before like we're throwing too much money into Google ads because organic and AI just isn't performing. It's just not coming through in the pipeline. So if you're seeing that, we're here to help. And perhaps you just want greater returns on your tool stack. You want greater returns from your tech investment. You want your CRM, and hopefully you're on HubSpot, to be working harder for you and joining up your marketing to what is actually in your pipeline and ultimately what is becoming closed revenue. If any of these sound like where you are right now, you are in the right place today. So ChatGPT has absolutely exploded in the past couple of years. This is the rankings of the top 10 websites by monthly visits. So you can see ChatGPT, the orange line, is huge. It's now the 5th most visited website in the world. This is from last year's data, but in 2026, it's still holding that place, and it has grown rapidly. I mentioned ChatGPT a lot because at the moment it tends to still be the most dominant of the AI search platforms outside of Google's AI overviews. So it's the app that most of us have on our phones for personal use as well. But what is also going on is that it isn't that we've all suddenly switched to ChatGPT and that's the only way we search anymore. We now know that there's a big audience overlap, that a lot of ChatGPT's audience don't just use ChatGPT, they're also using Google search. So we've got these two different ways of searching, and that can be because we start our research in ChatGPT, and once we've got some context, once we've maybe done some comparisons, once we've understood a bit more about what we might be looking to buy, we then go into Google to actually get to those websites or to specifically look for reviews of products or services that we're on the buying journey for. So now that we know the context of what's going on with AI search, let's talk a little bit about what Jaime and I are going to cover today. So the first is the AI Search Measurement Challenge, and this is a challenge. You are not the only marketing person with this challenge. We know that traditional attribution is often missing AI traffic, so we're going to talk about what we can do to fix this. And I'm going to be upfront now that there is no 100% perfect way of attributing AI search traffic the whole way along. This has not been solved. But there are lots of things that we can do to understand and measure AI search traffic, how it's influencing our brand and how it's influencing our pipeline as well, so that we have as much information as we possibly can do from the marketing side, but also for our sales teams and, of course, for our C-suites and for our boards. Then we've got the 5 metrics that connect AI visibility to pipeline, the things that marketing leaders should know and should be measuring as often as they possibly can. And then I'll be handing over to actually go through a hands-on HubSpot AEO demonstration, looking at the AI search visibility tools that are available. So if you're already in HubSpot's ecosystem, if you are using the CRM, you do not need to be adding separate tools and different platforms to your tool stack. It is now possible to do this all in one. So it's really the ideal situation. And then we will get to Q&A. So let's dive in then to the AI Search Measurement Challenge, the thing that we are all grappling with and what our analytics tools are missing. One of the first actions, if you haven't yet started thinking about how to measure your AI search traffic, is to jump into your Google Analytics. This is GA4, and you can set up custom channel groups. You can set up a custom channel group. You can see it at the bottom here so that you can see AI platform traffic. This example is coming from all AI platforms, but you can filter them if you want to have them separately as well. So you can see how much ChatGPT is driving versus Gemini versus Perplexity. This shows you the direct traffic and conversion. So when there is a referral, when you click a link through from ChatGPT, that is the traffic that shows up here. This is not complete, but it gives us a starting point. It lets you start to see some of that traffic over time. Now, when I'm saying this is not complete, you're thinking, Charlie, why? This is because we have a big problem in the sector, which is what's known as dark traffic, this traffic that is somewhat invisible. So what Google Analytics might be seeing is it might see some of that referral traffic we were just talking about, but you're likely to also be seeing direct traffic spikes. This is extremely common. And I would recommend comparing way back, if you think 2023, before AI chatbots and AI tools were really big and mainstream, compared to what you're seeing in 2026, many brands will be seeing a direct traffic spike, and there might not be a clear explanation why. You might also see referral sources of not provided. It's unclear where some of the traffic is coming from. You might also see an increase in conversions, but not a clear attribution of the origin of those. And you might also see other types of unknown attributions, things like dark social as well. So what is actually happening that's causing this? If you are seeing some of these or all of these in your GA4, you might actually have something like this going on. It might be that ChatGPT is recommending your brand, or Perplexity is citing your content, or you're featured in Google AI overviews, but rather than clicking directly through, or it may be that you're not even linked from those answers, buyers are actually typing your brand name into Google instead to find you. They're copy and pasting and then going back to the search that we all know and mostly love on Google search to figure out, okay, is this the brand I want to buy from? Is this the service for me? Is this the right product for me? Which of course makes attribution difficult. So once we've set up our baseline, we know at least our referral traffic. We know that there's some analysis needed in our Google Analytics to see what's been changing over the past couple of years. And we've got some inclinations of what might be causing that. We can dive into the metrics that actually then we want to be measuring that connect AI search to our pipelines. So I've got a 4-step framework here of the stages that link our AI search activity to our pipeline and hopefully ultimately to the closed revenue that we're seeing at the end. The first is our visibility. So firstly, understanding, are we even visible as a brand in AI? Are we being cited? Are we coming up in those answers as recommendations? And some of the measures we'd be looking at here are our citation rate, so how frequently we're cited, our share of voice, particularly against key competitors, and our visibility in prompts. And when I say visibility in prompts, I don't mean all prompts. I mean the prompts that we care about, that we've set up as a brand in our tracking, because we know that they have commercial value. We know that they're most likely to drive customers our way. The second is traffic. We know traffic. We've always known traffic. Our customers visiting us, it's still important. We can't just get rid of thinking about traffic, even though things are changing. So this will be our AI referred sessions. It's going to be our direct traffic. And one really key thing to look out for is that branded traffic increase. If you're seeing way more branded traffic than you were before, that may be that it's connected to AI search. It may be that people are Googling your brand name after having conversations in ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, pick your favorite AI tool. Then we get to leads. This is ultimately what we really, really start caring about when we're handing over from marketing into sales now. So are our leads actually converting? And there's things we can measure here too. So the framework that we want to look at are the source, the origin, where have our new leads come from? Where do they say they've come from? So if you are generating leads rather than in e-commerce, this just definitely make sure that you have added to your website where did you hear about us? And make sure that you've got multiple options anywhere that someone might commonly hear about you, but definitely make sure you've got ChatGPT and AI platforms as well, because that is an increasingly common lead source and a very quick way for a salesperson, a marketing person in the HubSpot CRM to see, okay, how many of our leads are actually coming through these AI platforms in a self-disclosed way. And then you've got your lead quality score as well, because ultimately we want SQLs, we want qualified leads for our sales team, not just leads that we can market to. And then the end of all commercial roads is our revenue. Are these leads becoming paying customers for us? Are they becoming long-term partners for us? Are they resulting in a good lifetime value? So you can check this with your deal sources in HubSpot, your closed revenue by sources, to see how many of those may have come from AI platforms or have interacted with AI platforms in the past, and also revenue by acquisition channel. So there's lots that we can start looking at, particularly if you're in the HubSpot ecosystem too. The 5 metrics that really matter on the AI search side, let's just dig into those a little bit. So the first one is citation rate. This gives us a baseline of our visibility. It's the first thing we want to know about AI search. Are we actually even in the conversations that we care about? When someone asks ChatGPT about the things that we sell, are we as a business coming up? And you can track this in many different tools like Peak and Profound, but HubSpot's AEO also allows you to track this as part of their marketing hub. So if you're already in HubSpot, there's definitely no need to be going elsewhere or adding new tools to your tool stack. The second is share of voice. This is what I like to think of as a competitive benchmark for AI, how we compare to our competitors. And the goal is ultimately to have the largest share of voice in AI searches. So this is worked out by your citations being divided by the total across all of the tracked prompts, because there's going to be lots of searches where both you and competitors come up in those recommendations. You want to make sure that you are coming up in the way that you care about being positioned and making sure you're coming up across as many as possible. Then we have our AI attributed traffic, which we already spoke about, which connects our visibility to website behavior. It actually connects all of the AI referred traffic so we can understand, okay, how much is definitely coming through as referral. And then our lead sources, so we can see, okay, AI has influenced this new contact that's come into HubSpot, and we can map, okay, we have this AI referred traffic, we have this number of people disclosing AI as their lead source. Amazing. We can start to see what the uplift looks like over time. And then we get to our closed revenue, which is, of course, our standard HubSpot revenue by source reporting. So let's connect these dots before I hand over for the big AEO demonstration that we're all most excited for. This is the motion that we go through from AI mentions right through to closed deals and how we want to be looking at that in our CRMs. So this is true across CRMs, but works perfectly in HubSpot because they have the AEO tool. So the first is AI mentions of your brand when you're cited in ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini for buyer queries that you'll be tracking in the prompts that you have. Seeing buyers visit your site, then they're filling in forms, the contact's becoming a deal, so it's entering the pipeline, and ultimately the deal's closing. That's the cadence that we want to see happening. So time to get into the demonstration of some of HubSpot's AEO tools. Jaime, I'm bringing you back on. Are you ready to take over and jump in?
Yes, I am born ready. So everyone can see my screen, right? So I think by now, that was great, by the way, Charlie. And by now we know that being invisible in AI search is not fun at all. So
that's not what we want.
So how do we bring all these amazing insights that Charlie has given to us to life? This is what I'm going to show you. Now, before I get to the actual demonstration, let's get to how we got here, right? And what makes us different. Now, like many of you, we were invisible in AI search, right? We felt the pain of not showing up in LLMs. So HubSpot, of course, had to change that. We were following the playbook we introduced as inbound back in the days, but that doesn't work anymore. So the tool that I'm actually going to show you is what we used to get out of that hole, if you will. And we saw our marketing team use that exact tool. And we went from being invisible to having 1,850% of our qualified leads coming from ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. So why people trust us is the confidence that this is not just a theory, it's a playbook that actually works. Now, what makes us different from the market is context. And a lot of you have seen context being thrown around, but what I mean by context is in your CRM, you have the AEO tool has access to who your customers, what your industry is, and who are your competitors, which is exactly what AEO cares about, right? So the recommendations will compound over time, and the quality of that data from day one is much better. So that's what makes us different on a content level. And this is something that can happen if you have that on HubSpot or not. We also have Content Hub, right? So if you think from a workflow perspective, going from insight to execution, that is possible in HubSpot because we're going to give you the recommendation on which tracks which prompts to track, what to do to improve your visibility in those prompts, and you can execute that content from within HubSpot with Content Hub. But the AEO all those recommendations, all those things that precede that live in Marketing Hub. So you don't need to have Content Hub. You can use your own content tools too. But from a marketing motion, it makes a lot of sense. Now, that's really great. Now, when it comes to a full marketing motion, and hello to all my fellow CMOs and marketers out there here in the presence with us. So what separates us, if we double click on it, is we help you spot the gap with our AEO functionality. You get a recommendation how to close that gap and easily create your own channels content, whether it's through HubSpot's AI blog or content remix that lives in Marketing Hub. And then on top of that, you amplify this on social channels like LinkedIn, Reddit, without leaving the platform. So it's all within one place. We're creating less confusion and noise. And last but not least, the most important thing, you then score, route, and nurture those high intent leads who arrive because of it. So that's a complete marketing motion in one place. So that's what makes us slightly different. And when we double click on that from a measurement point of view, HubSpot measures AEO success in pipeline, not just awareness. And we don't stop simply when AI mentions your brand. Most solutions will tell you that, hey, I saw your name, but today that's not enough. So HubSpot connects all the dots through revenue because the chain lives within the CRM, all the way from mentioning to deal closing, right? So you can prove that AEO drove something, not just that you're doing it. Now, just before we go into the demo, these are the three main things and ingredients that live in here. A clear view of how your brand shows in every major engine. Today we have ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. A strategy of how to improve that visibility and the tools that you actually need to execute without leaving HubSpot. Right. Now, you're probably itching yourselves to see this in action. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and go straight into it. Now, the first step when setting up your AEO functionality within your Marketing Hub is to set up your ICP and who are our competitors. So the first thing that we will do is we're going to tap into the CRM, to your ICPs, to your competitors, everything that is living in there, and we're going to do the research for you. If you're not in HubSpot and you're just starting, that's also the case because then the data will be fed into the CRM. So after a couple of minutes, this is going to bring up suggested competitors to track. It's going to bring up like what products you want to track and whatnot. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I have a video to back me up here, but it just takes a few minutes. So hopefully it doesn't take too long. Let's see. And bear in mind, this is a, there we go. It didn't take too long. We're just really impatient these days, at least I am. So in this case, you can add different domains and different variations. This is really important because, AI generated answers doesn't work not just on exact matches, right? So you can add the primary domain. In this case, I'm going to just select this one. And then after that, it will analyze based on that. It will start looking into your competitors. And this is where it becomes really interesting because here we will suggest automatically based on the context that lives within your CRM, which competitors to track. And you can add some if they're not, being surfaced, of course. For the sake of the exercise, I think this is spot on. So I'm just going to move forward and we're going to move forward to your products and ICPs. In here, it's a list of different products and ICPs that you'd want to track. We recommend tracking this because this is going to be really important on the type of recommendations that you're going to get from day one, right? So you would just select some of these or one of these. I'm going to select these two to start with. And And of course, this evolves, right? You can choose your location. I'm just going to put the West for now. And here, you're going to see from the first moment, you're going to suggest to you automatically which prompts to track. And this, it's what makes us slightly different from the rest of the industry, is that we're not just telling you you're invisible or visible. We're telling you these are the prompts you should track. Great. So I'm going to stop here because now I already had a portal that has been running for a couple of weeks, so I can have more juicy data in there. Right. So the first thing you're greeted with is this dashboard over here. And this is where you would come every morning and just look into your visibility scorecard, right? Think of this as your visibility scorecard. And as we've covered, this brand visibility dashboard gives you a single score. So out of all the prompts that you're tracking that you've seen earlier, what percentage of times is your brand showing up in those AI generated responses? So if you're tracking 10 prompts and you're showing up 7 times, that's 70%, right? Pretty simple. You can see then the evolution over time over here in ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. And you can tweak the dates also and filter based on that. On top of that, we give you also sentiment analysis, how positive and how negatively this is important, because you don't want to be showing negatively for sure. Now we go to minus 100% to positive 100%, so you can track that, right? So this is visibility. Now, when we scroll down, this is where things get really interesting, right? So in this case, we're tapping into share of voice, which Charlie has briefly touched on. Now, our customers most of the time find this quite eye-opening, right? Because this chart is showing you how are you faring against your competitors, right? On those when you select them on that first menu. And this is basically telling you, is your AEO strategy working out, or are you losing ground to your competitors, right? So to all my fellow marketers out here, when your CEO asks why competitor X is showing up and you aren't, you have the answer here, right? So this is a really, really nifty feature in our AEO stack. Now, when we scroll down, we go into citation analysis. This is just giving you a very high overview on which websites, in this case, is AI citing. So we bring up the specific domains, for example, and the type of those, and then the top URLs, right? So, but we're going to cover that more deeply in the citations tab over here. Now, let's look into prompts before that. You saw when I was setting up, from day one, we are suggesting which prompts to track. And this is what it looks like. In each prompt over here, you are going to see a couple of different things. You're going to see the 3 LLMs that you're tracking on, how many times you're being mentioned and how you're being mentioned, right? And on top of that, you get an analysis also. You get also the share of voice per prompt. You get also your visibility rate against competitors, the channels that are driving those citations, which is very important. And we'll get to that on the citations board in a second, which is a bit more macro. But then the cool thing is that you have the option to do this at a prompt level, at a macro level, right? So you can see also the top websites that are being referred also, and the types of content. So in this case, is it a listicle? Is it a blog? Is it social that is driving these answers? Is what is AI referencing to, right? And again, how you're showing up against your competitors from a domain citation rate versus a brand mention rate. Those are 2 separate things. So this prompt was doing great, but this one, 1%, Jesus Christ, that's terrible. So I want to do something about this, right? So you can then look into the recommendations. We're going to give recommendations per prompt, but I'm going to show you this on the recommendations tab in a second. But this is what really separates us. But I'm going to pin that for now. Let's look into citations first. So hopefully by now you understood what the citation is, and what here you're having a more macro vision of how AI is referring or citing those responses. Now, this is basically answering the question like, why is my visibility where it is, right? So it will analyze again ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, and where are they pulling those responses from. It's quite similar to the prompt level, so but it will go in a bit more depth here. So the citation rates against competitors, the brand mentions, we've covered that briefly. Now, here it's where it gets really interesting, which is the citation composition. So which channels, which type of content should we invest time on, right? So looking at this chart over here, for example, we see that blogs across time, and then you can tweak the dates, of course, up here. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier, but you can change this by weekly, and as much it's super flexible anyway. But here we're seeing that blogs are the driving force. Now that doesn't mean that these are our own blogs, because you're going to see something which is quite curious in a second. Let's look at the citation per channel, right? So we can see across every single date that your owned channels have way less weight compared to third-party channels. This is because AEO works on that basis, right? You can see that, for example, peer channels have a much larger weight. So the competitor channels, so this earned, typically peer and earned are really high. But here you're going from guessing to really understanding, okay, which type of content should I be focusing on? Which content is working really well? What sort of channels should I be doubling down on, right? You stop guessing from this point onwards. Now, when we zoom into that, we get a breakdown of your top citations on your own channels and your third-party channels. So here, for example, I can see some content types which are showing up much higher. So let's say, for example, Tech Radar. This is a listicle. It's on my top 5. That's a partnership I want to build, right? Because if those AI answers are referencing Tech Radar very often, I want to make sure that stays, right? And AEO is always evolving. So here again, you go from guessing, oh, which blogs or which partnerships should I be building? Oh, if it's Reddit, that's a channel I should be focusing on. All those things are really important. So you have the most holistic vision in one place. Then when we scroll down again, it's quite a similar view to what you're seeing, but it's just showing you, in this case, the websites that it's referencing and per type and the frequency broken down. So that's it's based on the view that you just saw. And here it's gluing all the pieces together, right? So the type of channel, the frequency of those URLs, is your brand mentioned or not, and whom are you coming up against? So hopefully you can understand now that you get a full vision of all those sites of where AI is referencing those responses and where you need to double down on. Now, the pièce of résistance, the recommendations. So this is what makes us genuinely different from anything else on the market. And I want to be clear why. So most AEO tools will give you, again, that visibility, but you'll still need to figure which prompts to track, what to do on the back of those, how to influence those prompts and those citations and whatnot. We are giving you actual recommendations and what to execute on the back of this, right? So let me show you an example. I've completed one here that is a recommendation on to generate net new content. And in each recommendation, in this one specifically, it's a blog post. So in each one of them, you're going to get a brief of, who's the audience, what's the title, the summary, the keywords you need to track, and what's driving this recommendation. This prompt, I'm showing up half of the times compared to my peers, my competitors. And my top competitor has 29% I don't want that. I want Adobe to be out of the picture, guys, completely. So this is giving you the reason why we're driving this recommendation and the citations that are driving this recommendation. Then what I did in the meantime is I clicked, it's not here anymore, but I clicked generate blog post, and it's our content agent that lives in HubSpot, tapped into your ICP, tapped into this brief, tapped into a bunch of different context data living in it, and came up with this. From here, you're going to publish the blog article. You can do this through Content Hub, or you can do this through your own content tools. That's fine. And then on the back of this, I need to understand what's the impact of, taking this action. So here, you can add a URL. You add this manually, but then you see the impact of how it impacted the overall citation rate and the associate prompt that is related to that citation across ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity. This is huge because you're going here from insight to execution, and that's the gap we're filling. So that's pretty much it from a demonstration. The last thing I want to show you is, okay, great. How does this translate into revenue? How can I prove? How can I show the proof is in the pudding, right? So you can use your classic, HubSpot reports. In this case, we're looking at website traffic analysis and AI referrals. This lives in Exposure Ninja, so I'm not going to show any sensitive data. But like the sessions, for example, we can very quickly see that 40 sessions are being driven by ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, for example, right? So in this case, we know we're tracking Gemini or ChatGPT. So it gives us a good understanding how much that AEO strategy is potentially influencing. Then you can see the types of the contacts if you are able to capture that, and the session lengths and all the other metrics that you see here. On top of this, so what's really important is this property, AI referrals. What you can do on top of this is build other custom reports. And in these custom reports, I used Breeze to come up. So I haven't built them, by the way, in our demo account because there's no actual traffic, so they will come up empty. But here, I want to get the most holistic vision possible of the effects of my AEO strategy. So if you want the scorecard here, you want to understand the volume, the pipeline, the progression, and the win rate. That's really it, right? And all these reports are using AI referrals as a metric to create these, comparing it to deal count or the effect that it's having on pipeline, on the deal stages, and then the win rate, which is what we really care about. Are those AI referred deals closing at a higher rate compared to non-AI source deals? This is really important. So here you're getting a full visibility of the funnel in one place. So hopefully today, after going through all this, the story is, the problem is the same, right? You want to make sure you're visible and you want to prove that, generating results for your business. Without Marketing Hub, that visibility is really hard to see that insight to action is more complex and it's harder to prove the revenue impact. The unlock you get is that you go from visibility into action and seeing it tied to revenue with HubSpot's AEO functionality and Marketing Hub. So on that bombshell, I'm going to pass it over to Charlie, who's going to carry us over.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking us through that. It's wonderful to see right inside of the HubSpot's AEO tool, because I think from the polls that we just ran, a lot of people were saying they're looking to get more value out of their HubSpot setup than they have at the moment. So I think a lot of our audience are using HubSpot, but perhaps thinking there is more in there that they can use. And hopefully seeing this demo has shown you some of the exciting stuff that is now available in the Marketing Hub. And Jaime, they can just get this by going into their Marketing Hub. How does someone access this if they're thinking about it now?
Absolutely. So you go to your Marketing Hub tab and you'll see the AEO. I can show you actually if you want. Yeah, this is again, if you don't mind, I can share my screen. I'll just show you exactly where it lives. So you come here. So I'm just going to share that up. So you come here, Marketing AEO. There you go. It couldn't get simpler.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Left-hand column into the Marketing Hub, and then AEO is the tool that is now available in there. So perfect for anyone who is on their HubSpot suite already. Thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful. So we are reaching the part of the webinar where it's almost time for our Q&A. If you have been enjoying the webinar so far, but you're perhaps left with a couple of questions about how you can actually get this to work, how you create more value from HubSpot, how you use the AEO tool, and how you actually manage AI search, then you are very, very welcome to book in an AI visibility consultation with one of our AI marketing consultants at Exposure Ninja. So we are a HubSpot partner. We work on HubSpot. We use HubSpot ourselves. We have a very experienced team who love setting up HubSpots so that we can maximize the amount of value coming from them. And we are AI search specialists as well. So you do not need to be setting up your AEO tool all on your own if you're not sure what's going on or how best to future-proof your setup to make sure it's driving commercial value for the business. That is what we are here to help with. And the CTA is up on the screen now. We have had some really interesting questions, just a couple that I will jump into straight away. The very first question then, which, okay, perhaps you know the answer, Jaime, is, are there tools that measure visibility that you would recommend? HubSpot, absolutely. The tool that we have just shown everyone here is definitely worth going into. I saw a couple of people in the chat also shared other AI visibility tools, and there are definitely different ones out there. So you definitely want your Google Analytics, and then you definitely need an AEO visibility tracker. So your options for that are going to be HubSpot. If you're in the CRM, perfect. You've just seen the whole demo the whole way through. But there are also other tools available like Profound, Peak AI, and Scrunch AI. They are completely separate tools. So you would then have to have another in your tool stack. And if you're already in HubSpot, this is definitely the most affordable option that there is available. Next up, this was a nice one. I love this question. This came up when you were showing all of those prompts. So how do we decide what prompts to track when they are unique to users and there's different answers every time? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what HubSpot does to help with this? And then perhaps I can add to it.
Yeah. I don't know if you agree, Charlie. You don't need to optimize for one perfect prompt, right? This is a lot about, you need to track a representative set of buyer relevant prompts and judge the performance and trend over time, not just from one, like any single answer. I don't know if you agree, Charlie, but
yeah.
Absolutely. So in HubSpot AEO, I think the starting point is prompts for a specific product, service, or vendor. They would logically show up in that answer. HubSpot then, it will suggest prompts using your CRM data. So each customer's prompt is set to, if you will, let's say tailored to your business, right? Instead of being a generic list. So that's the value here, right? So, and it will just keep compounding. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a lot about testing those prompts, not finding the perfect prompt, if you will. I don't know if you agree, Charlie.
Absolutely. I just muted my mic because I've got seagulls squawking very loudly in the background. So I hope my noise cancellation is working because Brighton Life is all about seagulls. Yes, I would not try and focus on the perfect prompt, but try and focus on the topical areas that you think are going to drive the most commercial value to a business. So particularly if you're working in large e-commerce or large enterprise, you've got lots of service offerings, then start with honing in on the ones that are your most profitable, that are your hero products, your hero services that you really want to promote. And you don't have to get very specific into every single customer persona that you might have and how people word it. What you actually want is almost like the root. You want to understand the most common questions, because when AI platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity are actually reading the prompt, reading what's being asked of them, they're trying to break it down into multiple queries that might be happening within that prompt. So ultimately, even if 5 different people are searching for a similar thing and they word it very differently, their wording will be unique to them, but ultimately the search that they're trying to make is very similar. They're on the same journey with a couple of personal nuances. So what you ideally want to get to with the prompts is making sure you've got that root understanding, and as much as possible focus on things that you know are going to drive commercial value. What you don't want is a situation where you're tracking hundreds or thousands of prompts, because that gets out of hand for any marketer. Start with 10, 20, move to 50, and then you've got something really manageable to work on where you can start moving the needle on specific prompts, specific areas. Yeah, absolutely in agreement. Then this great question from Harriet. It's a bit of a long one, a double question, you might say. How should we use citation source data to prioritize our activities? If non-owned sources dominate, is this where you would suggest investing time to have the biggest impact? I have a couple of thoughts. Jaime, is there anything you want to kick off with? Because that breakdown was great, where it was showing the offsite and the non-owned stuff.
Again, if speaking about of what we've seen today, right? The fact that I think you need to do it based on what the data is telling you, right? So you should invest time on the things that, both things, what is working and maintaining that's a defense strategy. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, what's not working and where you're being eaten, your share of voice is being eaten by the competitors, right? That's the way I see it. And what you saw is you go from guessing to saying, well, if my non-owned channels are working well, let me build those partnerships, make it more defensible if it's a listicle. If it's Reddit, we have integration in HubSpot, for example, with Reddit. Let me engage with those forums, that community, right? But I'm very curious to hear your answer, Charlie, because you guys are actually on the fields and helping customers figuring out their AI search. So this is what I see from a HubSpot lens, but I'd love to hear your take too.
Yeah, we very much are. And I feel like Harriet already knows the answer here just from how this question is worded. So we know from our work, we know from the data out there that over 80% of the time when AI is referencing your brand, it's actually not referencing your owned source. It's not referencing your business's specific website. It's referencing third parties. And that tends to be a mix. That can be things like review sites like Trustpilot. It can be forums, Reddit, Quora. It can be also PR articles. So if you work in tech, it's going to be tech publications like Wired and ZDNet. But it can also be big sources, things like news sources like The Guardian, The Washington Post, or even, very, very local news as well if you're a regional based business. And this varies. One of the most important things to be looking at when you're thinking about your AI search strategy is what those sources are, and not just trying to put out loads of PR and content into the world and hope that it comes back with great results. Instead of that scattergun approach, you actually want a really targeted approach where you are reverse engineering, okay, what kinds of sources are dominating and where does our brand need to be with what kind of content, so that you can be very, very targeted and make sure you're moving the needle on exactly those prompts we were just talking about, the commercial ones that you really care about. So a lot of the work that we do with clients is understanding, reverse engineering those answers, and then specifically focusing on making sure we're getting content in the right publications for the niche, for the industry, and it's different depending where you work. And the other one, gazumping our competitors, making sure that we are getting all of the same placements as them, and then trying to beat their articles, trying to find publications that AI actually prefers so that it will refresh the sources it's citing and reference us instead. This is not to say your own on-site content isn't important. Your own pages will be referenced, and particularly in certain types of sectors, if you have comparison pages, pricing pages, your homepage and your about page, they get very, very commonly sourced for those types of queries in AI platforms. So definitely keep those refreshed and really, really detailed as you can without creating a dissertation is my advice for that. But yeah, and we are on to the last question that we have time for. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, from Zakaria. Are there tools that help with fixing issues and enhancing AI visibility rather than just tools that do analytics and tracking? Oh, this is an interesting one. So insights help. They are not the only crucial thing. They are also part of a first step. What do you guys think? I have many thoughts about this, and this is a bit beyond the HubSpot measurement side we're going into, because there's a lot out there. So the analytics, the measurement, the visibility, the citations, the share of voice, all of this is incredibly important to make sure we know where we are, to make sure that we're not doing scattergun PR, and to make sure that we are actually making fixes that are needed. There are no exact tools that tell you these are the technical issues happening on specific pages that are blocking your AI. There are lots of tools that give some recommendations around this, and this is really common also in SEO tools, things like your schema, your broken links. You can get all of that kind of insight from tools like SEMrush or SE Ranking, Ahrefs, whichever one your business is using. You don't know exactly which ones are affecting your LLM visibility. So my advice on this is auditing your whole site, doing SEO technical audit for your whole site, because that also impacts your LLM, your AI visibility significantly. So there are things to check. Firstly, of course, making sure that you're not blocking AI crawlers, which you can check on your robots.txt straight away. That is the first thing. And I have seen even some very big mid-market brands accidentally blocking this because of settings within their Cloudflare. So making sure that you don't have that. Then I would say moving on to check nothing's broken, that you don't have broken links, that you don't have internal links that are 404ing, that your redirect chains are in place, all of the technical stuff that you can find out with lots of different tools out there, some of the ones I mentioned earlier. And then schema, this tends to be really underrated. And many people think, I've got schema in place. Absolutely no problem. There are over 100 types of schema, and making sure you're using the right schema on the right pages is incredibly important. And you can use a tool like HubSpot's AEO to actually find out, okay, which pages get referenced. And then you can then deep dive into your priority pages on your site, rather than thinking, okay, I've got multiple thousands of pages, or at least hundreds if you're an SME on the site. You can then prioritize the ones that show up in AI, dig into those to decide, okay, do we need to have schema updates here? Anything you want to add to this, Jaime? I've just gone on for like 5 minutes.
I think that's really interesting, because you just went, even more holistic there, right? You're touching on points that really would influence. I still think though, like the insight, I agree with you, Zakaria, like insight is necessary but not sufficient. But in the examples that you've seen, the real value is in tools that help you fix visibility problems directly, right? So that insight is still important. It's not, I agree with you, just reporting on them as we've probably, hopefully the message was out there during our presentation, is not sufficient these days, right? It's not enough to say like, hey, we're doing AEO because this is cool. No, we need to do something about it. What HubSpot does is just a vehicle of helping you what to focus on. But I think, like, as you've seen, like Exposure are experts in the matter, and we'll look at things beyond. Well, HubSpot will be one piece of the puzzle here, right? But yeah, I agree with you. Like, fundamentally, your instinct is right, I would say.
Yeah, amazing. This has been so fun. Thank you so much, Jaime, for joining me today to show off all of HubSpot's amazing tools. If you have any questions, Jaime, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, you know what? I'll Then you can add me on LinkedIn. It's Jaime De Botton. There's not many Jaime De Bottons out there, so please add me. I'm just going to type my name here. You can just copy paste. I'm really surprised if there's someone called this like this somewhere else, but anyway, you never know. But you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can also add on the follow-up, Charlie, to include my LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions there, connect. But thank you so much for having me, Charlie, and thank you everyone for showing up. Like, this has been a blast. I hope you had a good time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Jaime. And if you need anything from me, you can always find me at exposureninja.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Charlie Marchant. And I have attached my AI search newsletter that goes out very regularly on LinkedIn. So you can get all the up-to-date information about AI search and how we track it, not just because it's cool, which it is, but because of the commercial impact that it drives for our businesses as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And I hope to see you in our next webinar later this year. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.